Wake up and smell the coffee, Mr. LaRusso.
Extreme situations require extreme measures.
Yeah, it's probably about it.
You guys, Master Cobra Kai Karate. Welcome back to a random video. And guys, today we're talking about Daredevil, Born Again, Episode 9, the finale. And we got a lot to talk about, literally. When I logged in Disney Plus and I saw that it was an hour long and I saw Punisher, Frank Castle on the thumbnail, a cover, I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And as my title says, it was a great episode, but it was kind of incomplete. It was kind of rushed, and there's still a couple problems to be addressed. I felt like this episode kind of was picking up all the slack of the last episodes and trying to hold it and maintain it, and as they're doing that, they're kind of interfering with the original story they've begun, and they're also kind of messing with the pacing. And when you get to the ending, it doesn't really feel satisfying. It kind of just feels like there's more. There's supposed to be more, and maybe it feels satisfying with the episode or the last two episodes, but the entire show, all the arcs have been following, not so much. With that being said, the episode had fantastic moments, great moments, and we're going to talk about all of them right here. But before we do that, I think we should kind of address the problem, because I think that's why you guys are here, and we'll just get them out of the way. And most of the problems need context. Like, I think the problems are a lot more because of episodes prior to this episode, because when I watch an episode and it's just a good episode, it can't just be a good episode individually. It needs to be good for the story and the show. And I feel like if an episode is good, and it does, like, it could be a perfect episode, but if it completely rebukes or goes against the story of the previous season, even if it was good or bad, it's not good. It's not a good move. You have to follow the story, whether it's a good story or bad story. You can't just completely 180 a story. And I don't think they necessarily did that, but what they kind of did, they kind of just started bringing in other characters and other stuff, and it feels like they're trying to maintain it all. Like, for example, the whole Hector stuff, the whole stuff with White Tiger dying. He died in episode 3. We see a little bit of the kid, or I'm not even sure who she is really. We see a little bit of her like in episode 4 or 5. I think it was 4. I think it was 4 and 6, I believe. Really none left of her for the rest of the show, and then we see like one more glimpse of her at the end. And the whole storyline about, you know, Daredevil feeling guilty or something about that, we see that in him where Frank's telling him to kill that guy. We didn't see any of that guilt maintained throughout the season. Like, he just seemed breezed past by it. No scenes, no dialogue, no nothing about Hector or anything. It just seems like that wasn't there. And all these side characters, it just feels like they disappeared. You know, the whole Heather, his girlfriend, she is a very uninteresting character, and she gets barely any screen time this episode, bloody hell. And it just feels like she's like a far in the wind and doesn't really matter. Honestly, Karen Page is a way more interesting character. Why they had to separate them, why they had to mess that up, I do not know. But she just didn't feel like she really led anywhere. She left with agreeing to go with Wilson Fisk, which maybe that is to just learn more about it. I don't know. Does she also not realize that her boyfriend is kind of got shot and is not in the hospital and escaped? Where's that? And all the side characters, like that one reporter girl, all the guys, it feels like all these guys were there and they mattered nothing. Hershey, whatever that cop is, he just was at the end of the episode. He just spawned there. And then that other girl, it's just like, I just feel like they did not maintain or hold these characters well. These side characters, they came in the episode off a year time jump in the beginning, and they were not interesting from the start. They never had a start, middle, and an arc, or an arc in general, and then you get to the end, and they're just non-existent, and it just feels like they're pointless, and they were just there to move the plot forward for Matt Murdock. That is a big issue, and I know this is kind of just what's been following for the whole season, but when you get to the finale, you could utilize these side characters in a big way to make them not just a boring side character, to elevate them more into the story and have that story impact them individually as a character. They don't do that. They really just don't care about the characters. Honestly, if season 2 happened tomorrow and these side characters were never mentioned or never in it, I think no one would care, and that's a big issue. Because side characters, yes, they're side characters, but the side characters we had before, like Karen and Foggy and all the guys we had in Daredevil, don't even compare to these, and that's a big issue. And I do not like how the finale episode kind of maintained that. They just kind of de-escalated them instead of escalating them, which I thought that was the only way you could save these side characters with maybe some potential to grow something bigger, and they did not do that. Outside of that, the whole episode I thought was really, really fun and really good. We started off with Matt Murdock in the episode inside the hospital, and he is their Kingpin, which I thought was a huge turning point, where he's basically saying, "Go kill him." Like, it's better for him to die as a hero than live as a vigilante, which makes sense. It really just shows how far gone Kingpin is, and we see more in this episode. That Matt Murdock just saved his life, and that it just completely doesn't even bother him. Like, he does not care. It just shows how really evil he is and how far gone he is, and I do like that. Some could say that was not really completely built up, but I don't think it necessarily needed to be built up, because I don't think he ever was actually good. I think he was just. They just showed other sides of him, but that other side was not him as a different person. He always had those bad tendencies. He always was that evil person. He just didn't show it as much. He didn't reveal it as much, and now he is when push comes to shove, and it is. Outside of that, they send everyone after at his house, and Frank Castle is there. We had a lot of Frank Castle this episode. You guys know he's one of my favorite. He's now one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. I mean, I think you got Rocky, you got Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and you got Frank Castle. John Burntell's Frank Castle. Those are probably my top 3 favorite fictional characters of all time. So to see him here, I loved the scenes. I loved everything that happened. The only small issue I have, and it's a very small one, and I don't want to seem negative. I don't want to seem like I'm cherry picking, but the dialogue did seem a little forced, a little bit too on the nose. It didn't really come off natural. It didn't really feel like it was rolling off his tongue like it kind of used to in the show, and his show and the Daredevil show, and that's my only issue. There was good dialogue later on, but with their first interaction and a couple more, it just seemed a little too on the nose. It didn't really sound like Frank Castle. It didn't really seem like him. It just seemed a little uncharacterized. I feel like the writers didn't really know how to write his character. But outside of that, the actual scenes, outside the dialogue, were great. Like, first off, the fight scene they had I thought was very fun and very good. And we get to the part where he's kind of pushing Matt to kill him, and he doesn't. Which is just showing more layers to his character and more layers to everything. And even him not even knowing why he took a bullet. And then we get later on into the episode with Frank and Karen Page is there, where we find out Karen Page called Frank helped. And then we see scenes of Karen and Frank. Love this stuff. You guys know their dynamic in Punisher Season 1 and 2, and Daredevil Season 2 was absolutely amazing. The way that they're like such separate human beings, but they have such a common instinct, intact, and feel and emotion, that they just connect with each other. And the actors and actresses, they have such great chemistry, such great dialogue, such great scenes, and their eyes and their body language tells millions of stories in the show, and it does here as well. I love the scenes, I love the dialogue, and I love everything of Frank still kind of wanting to do it. And the scene I love even more is when Frank's sitting there alone, and he just picks up the shotgun to go after. Now, you guys know Frank Castle. I think in that moment he is just itching for a war. He wants a war. It's always who Frank has been. You get to the end of Punisher Season 1, he's like, I'm scared of the silence. I'm scared of not having a war to fight. He just cannot live like that. He almost feels like a war machine. He doesn't. Sometimes he might not even feel human. He feels like his only purpose is out there to kill. And it's what he's best at. It's what he's good at, and it's the only thing that probably makes him feel complete and have a purpose on the earth. And that scene didn't necessarily tell that story. It didn't really say that, but I think it showed it, and people who understand Frank's character knew that's what he was doing. He knows he's going into a danger where he could probably get killed. He knows this stuff could happen, but he does go out there. He does go out there and kills as much as he can in a great fight scene again. But they capture him, they beat him up, and he could have just easily said, whatever. He could have even played his way out of it if he really was smart, or I guess, took his intelligence over his emotion. He could have just played along with them, got out of there, escaped, or killed them. He could have just done that. Instead of that, he looks them right in the face, tells them they're clowns, tells them they're wrong, tells them they don't know what he's gone through, what he lives with. Because I think Frank Castle, when it just shows how much more emotion's in his body. He knows he could have got out of the situation, but he doesn't care. He'd rather tell it to them to their face and tell the truth to lie for 1 second, even if it costs his life. That just shows how much of an intense character he is. And then they start to beat him up brutally, a lot like Rollins did in season 1, episode 12, Home. Just absolutely beating him. It's nothing he's not used to either, anyway. But the rest of the episode, the whole city gets shut down, it's turned into riots, and, you know, I thought those stuff were good. I just felt like they didn't really show enough of it. I really would have loved, I really was hoping for it. I thought they were going to do it, and I would have loved if, Daredevil would have went out there in the city against, what's it called? I forgot the name. It's gonna come back to me in like 10 seconds, I probably. But the task force or whatever the hell, I would have loved him to go out there in the middle of the street and just a full-on Batman 2022 style, just beat the hell out of these guys inside the fire, inside the dark. It would be awesome. But I do love the dialogue. But he was hurt, and I do love the dialogue of him and Karen Page talking in that scene. Really well done, and all the Karen Page scenes are great. Why is she not in the entire show with me? I'm like comprehension. But you get later on, the scene that I think was the most shocking was the Kingpin scene, where he absolutely rips this guy's face, his jaw, and everything off. And I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't think Disney was going to do that. I really didn't. I knew they were going to show the gore. I didn't know they were going to make you feel the gore and be insane gore like that. Because, there's different levels to gore. There's gore where you look at it, it's like, okay, that's someone dying, that's blood, that's everything. Then there's gore where you can see the inside of like a human body. And that's the gore I did not think they were going to touch at all. That's what they did there. And I gotta say, I loved it. And I loved Kingpin turning completely evil. I loved the idea of him being a mayor in this huge corrupt system, and him having people in cages and everything, and owning stuff and killing people just so some stuff that doesn't get out there, and how he has a crazy wife and that's completely turn evil. The whole idea of this is awesome, and I love that. And I would have loved Daredevil going after the system, where he's a one man versus 1,000 man, taking him down once at once. He says he needs a team. We'll see what that leads into season 2. Maybe that's Frank, maybe that's someone else. But Frank does get captured, and he's in a cage, and the end credit scene is him escaping. I'm guessing, or he kills a guy, I don't know. But there will be a Punisher show, so we'll see where that leads into. But I want to see more Frank and Karen Page. That's just what I need to see. And I really hope they fix up the dialogue, because the dialogue still seems a little on the nose, but the acting and the scenes are really good. And the last things I'll say about this episode, at least for my good part, and I have a couple more nitpicks. The cinematography was beautiful. Again, just like last episode, the shots are amazing. They're so good. And the dialogue between him and Karen Page were spectacular. Amazing writing. And it's just spectacular how they do that. And you get to the end scene, they start playing some Radiohead. He goes out there and kind of shows to everyone at that bar and a couple of police officers on who he is, that he is Daredevil. And I just love the idea of that. And the final shot of him looking out at the city, it's great, bro. It's really good stuff what they're doing there. But it's incomplete. And now I've been holding this off. You guys are still watching. I bet most people already clicked off. There might only be one person watching me say this, but this is actually my biggest problem with this episode. Where the hell was Bullseye? Outside of one scene in the beginning, which was a year flashback, whatever the hell, and then way down as one last scene of him looking through a broken window. You can't have Bullseye escape, kill people, and then just completely vanish. You mean to tell me as our city is rioting, he's just going to be there hiding? And you mean to tell me that that no one is really thinking or caring about where he is? They mentioned him once. Like, what the hell? This is why I do not like when the plot moves. They use characters like pawns in a chess game. They use them as like, I'm going to use this character and this character to move you to get you where I want to go with our main characters and our main story, like the Knights and the Queen and whatever the hell. But he's not a pawn. He's not a small side character to slightly move the story forward. He is a huge, big character that you use in a huge, big way. And now you're just going to just forget him? Like, you can't move the plot like that. You need to move the plot like using the characters and have them all have arcs and have them all have good start, middle, finish arcs that all add to the plot, and the plot adds to them, the story adds to them, and it all works out. That's what the show did, and this what this did not do. In this episode and the entire show, and that's the biggest issue. It is just not paced well. It's not thought out right. They had a lot of reshoots, a lot of different writers, a lot of different directors, a lot of controversy with how they wanted to film it, and it just caused issues. But with that being said, they have a great passion and a great vision. They just did not execute on it very well. Now we saw most and almost all of the glimpse of their imagination and all of their passion they want to do with the story and this character, and it was really well done. It was. And if they can keep making these great stories in their mind and actually execute in the writing, take their time, write it well, direct it well, and take your time with the scenes and the characters, and actually think about characters and how they place in the story and have it paced well, and have an actual good complete season, not an episode. In season 2, this show, it will be very good. So I think this episode is the beginning of something new with the show. And yes, it was kind of sloppy because they had to carry all the slop of the season, which it wasn't necessarily slop, it just wasn't good. It was just a bunch of mediocrity. It just wasn't really spectacular. And that's what they kind of had to do, because I feel like each episode was its own story. It didn't really feel mashed well together at all, which is why they had to free-film a lot of stuff. But this could be the founding stone of what this Daredevil show could be and what the Punisher show could be. Get back to the core. Forget about Disney, forget about Netflix, forget about everything. This is a show, these are characters that are so good, that are beyond Marvel. It's beyond everything. It is cinema, and you need to get back to it instamatically. That's not a real word. I got corrected by that many times. I don't care. Paulie said it in Iraqi. If Paulie says it in Iraqi, I don't give a frick what the dictionary says. Instamatically is a real word. So yeah, you need instamatically get back to that. And I pray to God that the Frank Castle show is not like this show where it's just mediocrity and it's just all right. No, you got to do what we saw of Frank in this episode. We got to see what we did Frank in season 1 and 2 of Punisher, and season 2 of Daredevil. That's what we need. Bring back all the guys you need. Bring back, why are the guys from the Netflix show not here? Bring back the writer, the director, cinematography. Bring back the guy who was holding the cameras. Bring back the janitor who was mopping the floor back there. Bring back everyone. That was perfection. Why are you trying to interfere with that is beyond me. I first thought because they didn't want to add gore, they didn't want to do it. Clearly, you're fine if I saw that guy's freaking jaw and like eyeball popping out. Freaking like that was like freaking Omni-Man type killing there. And why is that not an entire show? And why, if that's not a problem, why are the writers in the show not a problem? I do not know. So season 2 of Daredevil needs to utilize Karen Page, needs to utilize Daredevil and the story, and take time and have a well thought out season. And keep doing what we saw of this episode, minus the inconvenient sloppiness and holding on to the slack of the story, which is kind of just falling apart. I feel like this episode was kind of making the story kind of fall apart, but a new story was rising up. Not a new story I'm very interested in and very impelled with. With that being said, I'm going to give this episode a solid 8.6. I could go an 8.7 if I just watched this episode with minusing the entire show. Then an 8.7, maybe an 8.8. But I just cannot just forget about the show. This is not its individual thing. This is a part of a show. It's a finale of a show. It's following off of stuff that happened not very well. But if you just forget all 8 episodes, you just watch the episodes, an 8.8. But since this is a part of the Daredevil story that does need to follow stuff that they did not follow, I'm giving this an 8.6, which is the best episode in the show. So I'll probably make a entire review on this show eventually. I also do want to make a video about what I want in season 2 of Daredevil, to go more in depth about that, as I kind of already yapped about. But yeah, the show's over. I would say where my expectations were going into this, it is a disappointment. But if I was not a big Daredevil fan, I never watched Daredevil, my expectations would have been very, very well met. But that just shows the gap between the Daredevil show and Disney shows. So I'll have to think about the show overall. Would I give that rating? I'll have to think about it more, or maybe rewatch a couple episodes. But yeah, that's basically my review, my last time at Daredevil. And yeah, that's about all I got to say about that. I do plan to start doing Star Wars reviews, because I do know that Revenge of the Sith is returning in theater. I do plan to go there, so maybe you guys will get a Phantom Menace review. I really do not want to rewatch that movie, but I will. You guys, I hate Phantom Menace. It's not a good movie at all. Attack of the Clones is at least a decent movie for Star Wars, but the acting is so bad, it makes you want to jump out of a roof. And then Revenge of the Sith is a phenomenal movie. We'll get to that. But if you guys want to see those reviews, let me know. Thanks for watching this video. See you guys next time. Always remember, extreme shoulders are extreme measures. Peace out.